I'm Effie Parks. Welcome to Once Upon a Gene, the podcast. This is a place I created for us to connect and share the stories of our not-so-typical lives. Raising kids who are born with rare genetic syndromes and other types of disabilities can feel pretty isolating. What I know for sure is that when we can hear the triumphs and challenges from others who get it, we can find a lot more laughter, a lot more hope, and feel a lot less alone. I believe there are some magical healing powers that can happen for all of us through sharing our stories, and I'll take all the help I can get.
Once Upon a Gene is proud to be part of Bloodstream Media. Living in a family affected by rare and chronic illness can be isolating, and sometimes the best medicine is connecting to the voices of people who share your experience. This is why Bloodstream Media produces podcasts, blogs, and other forms of content for patients, families, and clinicians impacted by rare and chronic diseases. Visit bloodstreammedia.com to learn more.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the show. This is Once Upon a Gene, and I'm your host, Effie Parks. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your precious, precious day to pop on this show, wherever you are. I know some of you are walking. I know some of you are in bed. I know some of you are in the shower. I know some of you are on a walk. Whatever you're doing, thank you so much. I am so grateful for you. You are the reason this show has breath in it. And if you could, please share this show with someone today. Share an episode, your favorite one. Share the link. Put it on your social media. Put it on your Instagram. Oh my gosh. I would be so grateful if you write a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps everyone decide whether or not they want to listen to this show when they're searching for this type of content. And you and I both know how important it is. So thank you so much for that. I'm really excited for today's episode. It's extra special. You might have remembered if you've been here for a while, or if you're a very good student, all the way back, episode 29, my sister Christy Foster joined. She was the reason for my famous oxygen tanks that I kept on my fridge that I talk about all the time that have been a lifeline for me. And today we're having her on the show again, and probably several more times, because she's my Mother Earth. And she made a post the other day about jaw pain and how, why and how it shows up, and the stress and the anger and the fear and the fight or flight stuff that caregivers like us all feel. She's going to kind of go into that a little bit and talk about why you need to notice it, how you can do that, and some tips to move through it. So it's a really great episode. I hope you love my conversation with her. It's so hard not to just deeply listen to Christy when she speaks. I feel like she knows everything and she's like my guru. So check out her website. It's christyfoster.co to learn about all of her educational background and just learn some really important things. She puts on a lot of conferences and continued education, and then also sort of like deep dives into certain aspects of her work that you can go join in, sometimes online, sometimes in person. Anyways, please welcome my beautiful sister, Christy Foster. Hello, Sister Christy. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. I constantly am like, oh my gosh, I need to have Christy on and talk about that. Or I'm telling people, stop doing that and go get somatic therapy. Anyways, I'm so happy to have you back. You've been one of my most treasured and special teachers and just all around health promoters in my journey. So I totally believe in every single thing that you do from personal experience. And I'm excited to introduce you to more of an audience than I think you were like my 4th episode or something way back in the day. So
I think I was too.
When I was a little baby podcaster. Okay, so the other day I reshared one of your Instagram posts. So it'll be linked in the show notes, but please go and make sure to follow Christy. It's christy.f13 on Instagram. And again, I'll have it linked. But you had a post that said 3 ways emotions can influence jaw pain. And then like 1 million people responded in my DMs saying like, oh yeah, that's why. Oh, yep. Oh, I have that problem now. And just like on and on and on. I was like, okay, it's time to have Christy back. So let's talk about it today. We'll talk a little bit about the jaw and then other manifestations from that and get some insight. I know that people are always searching for new ways to understand and to find help, because the standard answer, I feel like, for everyone is go to therapy, which yes, therapy has a place, but therapy isn't the answer for everything all the time in this exact way. So
Right.
I'm going to let you lead off because I don't even know what my first question is really. But can you talk about chronic stress and how that leads to muscle tension and clenching our jaw and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of structure first around the body and what emotions do and how they show up when they're not expressed, how they can show up when there's been holding of not feeling like you have any control of any type of trauma. The muscle tissue in our bodies somatically represents our emotional holding, and our bone structure represents our thinking mind. So there's two different ones. The structure in our body holds up the body. The muscle tissue helps us move and joints and creates flexibility. And when there is a trauma or stress, prolonged stress especially, what it starts to do is literally starts to create pain, because that part of the body, it will land in different parts of our body. And Effie, that's probably its own podcast. But depending on where it lands, that's where pain can happen. So for example, if someone is having low back pain, oftentimes that represents not feeling supported, not feeling like you have enough financial means to support yourself and or your family. And then over time, that worry literally becomes dense in the body, and the muscle tissue contracts, which creates pain. So it starts out as one thing, and if it's not handled or given attention, it starts to create pain. And over time, the body will force you eventually to pay attention, because the pain sometimes for people that I see can get so great, and that can be emotional pain or physical pain, that they're forced to say, okay, uncle, what can I do to help me feel better? And my work is really bringing simplicity to, okay, this is where we're at. Here are some things that you can begin to become aware of your own patterns and implement a few simple things. Yes, therapy is a thing. It's one of those pieces, but there's many parts that we can have access to that you can do yourself to actually, I think, regain control over, or a sense of control over the pain, but also not feeling like you're in control. Because when we're in pain, emotionally or physically, it is really difficult to take care of your kids. It's difficult to go to work. It's difficult to get sleep. All of these things start to compound. And then it's kind of like, I liken it to Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, when the tornado's spinning and your house is spinning, the cow, Auntie M, the dog, the witch, all of these things. And you're like, I don't know what to do. And then you kind of go into a state of feeling frozen, or a fight or flight response, because it's like too much, too fast, too soon. And then we don't know what to do. And so part of my work is to educate people to be aware of when that pattern shows up and what are a few things you can do about it so it doesn't consume you, because everyone has that happen. And I think as you become more aware of your own responses and patterns, it could happen less. So that's kind of the structure that I want to lay. And I'm assuming, Effie, with people that listen to your podcast, all of the above happens, right?
100%.
And so I think to keep it simple and understand that two things, you're not broken, and there is a lot of help out there for that feeling, because feeling like that is terrible. And we've all been there. And I also think that having a disabled child makes it exponentially more. And unless you have that, I don't think people could comprehend what that is. That's so my perception. But how would someone know except you, your listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to turn some things into a series with Christy, because when I just like rattled off just even a teeny tiny little piece of the pie that affects caregivers on a daily basis. It was almost funny because I didn't even really go into the meat of it. And it was so much already. And it's normal land. So it's so magnified and it's so chronic. And obviously it affects people differently. And then something else you said made me really very aware of past for me, in that I could pinpoint several places on my body that hurt at certain points in my life, depending on what I was dealing with or not dealing with or going through, and how my pain was different and where it was placed. And so that's very interesting to even just sort of be mindful of moving forward. But you also said that, so you're going to teach us how to notice things, which would be very helpful, because I feel like it's really easy to go into that place where you kind of lock everything away. And it does terrible, bad things when you let that happen. Some people some people can obviously fly off the handle too, right? But I think that locking away thing is so common because you still have to manage everything.
Right. And the locking away is one way of saying it, because emotions have to go somewhere. Yeah. They can end up as an explosion over a period of time, because they can't stay long term. It's going to come out through pain. It might come out through explosion. It might show up as implosion, which is repression and holding back of emotions, which is kind of where we're going to lead into today around the jaw, because the jaw specifically is expression. We open our mouth, we hear sound that comes from our throat, and our mouth forms words. And when we are wanting to express something, and there's various things that we can talk about that it creates a challenge, what happens in the jaw is it will hold and clench and tighten, because there is like a feeling of perhaps stuckness, and okay, and how do I do that? And why does it matter? And what's it going to do for me? So that's probably the easiest way to begin, is to understand that little part, because even us being on a podcast is expression, and connection with people, that actually helps jaw pain, because we're expressing what we're feeling. Other people can receive that, and their nervous system settles because they feel heard and understood. So really important to pull in all of the aspects around how and why someone might hold tension in their jaw, which is expression. Mm-hmm. So we could start there, which I think would be a good place to start, since we're talking about it. And so many people, depending on your life experience, can be really challenged with expression.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start there, especially since that's kind of what pinged me on this idea. It made me think of, being angry. There's a lot of anger in this, depending on what stage you're in, especially the level of it. And then also, just not being able to reach out about it or understand it or speak about it or have anyone else that understands it, so you don't have anyone to talk to. All of those things, right, that I think about when I think about the mouth. And I think about my own jaw pain. And I feel like what you just said was kind of an aha moment, because my clenching at nighttime used to be so severe that even with a mouth guard, my teeth were still breaking. But since the podcast started and all I've been doing is communicating with other people, I have almost felt like, I wonder if I need my mouth guard.
It's a good example though, Effie, because it takes you out of isolation.
Yeah. So let's talk about the jaw. Christy, tell me what somatic therapy techniques or sort of principles do people need to know about helping to release this tension in their jaw, or noticing it, or whatever?
Well, I would like to start with creating an understanding about, so the jaw, it holds your teeth. It's a joint that moves up and down to break up our food. And somatically in the body, the joints, and that includes your joint in the jaw, they represent flexibility and adaptability. And they are representation of, can we be flexible emotionally to the challenges in life and new situations? So joints emotionally actually have quite a bit to do with how we're holding it, depending on what goes on in our head or our experience around it. Joints in general, they are providing support and stability. And they also, when they become rigid, not just the jaw, there is a pattern of resistance to change, a pattern of inflexibility, perhaps, a pattern of rigidity in the way we think, because those thoughts literally create a response in the body that manifests as that is true. The joints also, so they bear weight, so they're supporting us. So how can we better support ourselves? They really represent emotional flexibility and being able to adjust to what is coming at us all the time, because life is constantly changing and moving. And so for your listeners, I'd like you to ask yourself, okay, so how was expression modeled for me growing up? What was that like? Were your parents able to allow you to be angry? Many, many people, that was never allowed. And being angry sometimes was a spanking, sometimes was go to your room. You can't be around me when you're angry. And so there's this thing around anger that the relationship that it's bad or wrong to express anger. And anger is a healthy emotion. Anger is like a fire and it moves through us, and it's healthy and it should move through us. But when we repress it, it literally starts to smolder in our bellies. Sometimes it can turn into heartburn, literal, the word heartburn, because there's a repression of emotion and a pushing down and a swallowing of. And you'll hear people say, I just swallowed that. I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth shut. We speak somatically quite often. And when I hear, I just keep my mouth shut, what I would tell you most often is the case, jaw pain. Because that holding down and swallowing is what over time creates the tension in the muscles around the joint, which is contraction. And then over time, like you said, Effie, you had to wear a mouth guard. You clenched through the mouth guard. Many people will break their mouth guard because the tension is so great. And then you started doing the podcast and expressing, and I would say also being witnessed by other people in your community that, yeah, Effie, I get it. I see you. I understand to the degree that we can. But it's the community and the expression with that actually does a lot of healing, because the emotion comes up and it moves out. And so looking at some of the patterns from your origin. So questions I would ask, is there a fear around conflict? Some people, they can't do conflict because it activates them so much. And then the compression and the contraction in the jaw, let alone different parts of the body, begins to happen. Sometimes there's immense guilt and shame held around expression, period. Because you're supposed to be stoic, you're supposed to be grateful, you're supposed to count your blessings. There's all these supposed to or shoulds. And that's not real. What's real is life happens. And it's not always pleasant. And so the pattern of being stoic or putting away your feelings because you feel guilty creates pain, emotional pain first, sometimes isolation, sometimes rage, because it doesn't have a place to go. And you can see how over time, it's like water dripping. At first, water is, it just drips and it moves. But over a while, it starts to destroy whatever it is it's dripping on. That's the best way I can explain how the body starts to get sick and or create pain, is because it can't take one more drop. And the belief that you should be able to handle your emotions and not rely on others is also taught, and it's not the most healthy way to live, because sometimes those emotions are so big, they can swallow you whole. And having a community, which is what you've created, Effie, is so valuable because people can listen, feel understood, and express. Oh, I heard this on a podcast today. I totally get that. It makes me so angry when I say hooray, because that's so important to express and also begin to learn a language for those emotions. And one of the last things that I'll talk about is past traumas. So sometimes if that happened in the past, and it could be in your childhood, it could be in a current relationship, when you expressed something, you got in trouble, for example, or sometimes people will get, smacked across the face. There's lots of different things that happen with trauma that will shut a person down to not speak. So what I would suggest is kind of going through that list and going, okay, what's my pattern? What's happened? What was I taught about communicating how I feel? And it's very easy to look at your mother or your father and see the pattern and which one fits you, which pieces fit you. So you have a starting point of what are you doing? What is my pattern? And then we can move to some ideas to shift the pattern. It's not who you are. It's something that was created based on your life experience. So to not get attached to, I must really be screwed up, I'm broken, I can't ever get fixed, but to be open to, okay, that's where I came from. That's how I was raised. And there's plenty of ideas and resources to begin to shift that so it's not so hard.
100%. I've done that personally with the way I grew up. There's so many pins I want to put in this, and I know that we can't go into everything, but I think about when you said the thing about flexibility. And I think all of us parents who are raising kids with so much uncertainty and who are sick are forced to be flexible. So what is it about being forced to be flexible? Because yes, we do get good at being flexible and adapting, but then there's other parts where we literally can't be flexible because we have to do everything a certain way to make sure our kid's safe. But the flexibility aspect is also not necessarily a whimsical flexibility choice. And we have to be flexible because there is never any kind of certainty in the day-to-day. Does that make any sense?
Yes, absolutely it does. Because of the reality of, yes, I have to be flexible. And there's a piece in there too of feeling forced, and you use the word have to. Sometimes there isn't a choice. And I'm going to invite the idea that maybe there's not a choice in that moment, but there could be later that day. And to give you some choices to re-regulate your nervous system. Because that's true. And that's self-care. And we can go into that because over time, if you're feeling like there is no choice, literally the body has to continue to contract, which creates pain because it's that push. Life happens, we push again and push again. And somewhere along the way, your tire's going to blow. So to add some pieces in there around self-care and regulation, if you felt forced that day, and you had to be flexible and adjust because someone didn't show up, but now you can't go, and or your kid got sick. There's so many pieces, Effie, that are in there. Yes, and let's add some coping mechanisms that can be really, really helpful in a very quick minute.
Yes. Okay. And the other part, and now I'm kind of losing of my train of thought of how you brought it up exactly, but it made me think of, I see reports all the time online and they say 95% of rare disease caregivers are depressed. And that statement really, really activates me in a negative way because I do not think that is true. I think depression is absolutely, obviously a very real and very serious thing. But what I think the bigger percentage of that sort of pull is that it's not depression. It is the brace for continuous impact for the rest of your life. So how do you build up that resilience or whatever to let it in and through and out, because it's going to happen today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. It's not a once in a while thing like you expect normal life to be. It is constantly. And so how do you always get kicked down the stairs and come back up without being super affected and maybe doing it better each time?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. I would tell you one of the key pieces is to ask yourself, because after you said it right, I don't know if I would agree. It's not just depression. It's many, many, many things. And someday it might be depression. Some days it might be anxiety. Some days it might be rage. Some days it might be resentment. Those are all really strong emotions. And you may not be sure which one might show up that day. So what I can offer is, okay, what are some patterns, which we just talked about? What are your avenues of expression? Because if you're able to express, this was a really hard day, and all of the parts in that, and be witnessed by a friend, which is connection, which is one of the keys, it will help your nervous system. It will help you regulate again. Connection is so important. And to connect with someone who isn't going to fix you, isn't going to say, well, and you just, and that whole, what's the other term that at least, I don't like that phrase to begin a sentence either. Those kind of things, if you can have a person that you can call and talk to or vent and know that being witnessed in the grief, the rage, the sadness, possibly shame, that it takes the edge off. Doesn't make it go away, because you can't make it go away. However, and what you can do is soften the hit a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Taking the edge off. It's profound when your edge is very sharp.
Yeah.
Well, and I think another reason that it's so bothersome to me is that so many of us are genuinely happy, right? And we find happy, and to have that diminished when it has taken so much work and reflection and practice to just be dismissed as depression and mental health issues, when our feelings are real and they're important and they matter and they're not bad. So I just don't like that line that gets drawn, because I think it confuses very stressed out caregivers.
Yeah. And it labels people, and that I don't think is helpful all of the time. Sometimes it has its place, but to make more room for yourself and the emotions that are attached to part of having a disabled child and being a caregiver, that is 24/7, that all of those emotions are allowed.
Totally.
In a safe way.
Right.
Let me just put that little bit, because it does need to be in a safe way, in a healthy way. So like, for instance, we talked about connection. Maybe after your kids are not around, because I don't think they should hear you vent, for you to call someone and talk about the day and the challenges of the day. And that is one way to move some of that literally out of the body. And especially if you are a clencher, I'm telling you, I can't guarantee you. However, I know that it will help shift the pain in your jaw, because someone is holding space for you and listening as you express.
So many of our caregivers, if not most, 95% of them have that person online. They're not in-person people, and some of them are across the world. So is it the same as typing your DMs out in the middle of the night to that person that you know is there? Should you use the microphone button and say it into their DMs, or is it a phone call?
I think it could be all three. I think that expressing through your voice is very different than typing, because it's literally moving out of you, and you're going to hear your own voice, sometimes the quiver, sometimes the rage. And that movement, because you'll go, as it comes up, it comes up. And then sometimes tears come, right? And that's like your nervous system, your body taking a deep breath as tears come or as yelling comes. Sound is really, really important in expression. And typing it out for sure helps because we're moving it out of our bodies through our hands. And I would also encourage someone, if they like to express through typing, to journal. But I encourage you to use a pen and paper because it's different when you use your pen and paper versus on an electronic device. And I would do a little bit of all three and maybe shake them up and see which one is the most effective, especially when there's been a lot of stress.
So that other part of the jaw piece, it's causing headaches. What piece is taking it from the clenched jaw to having headaches?
Well, there's a few parts to that. So physically, when you're clenching, you have muscles right above your ear and that come down and attach to where the jaw opens and closes. That muscle gets really, really tight. And you have soft tissue and muscle completely covering your cranium, your head. And think of it like saran wrap. If my jaw is clenched and it's like me grabbing a piece of saran wrap and it pulls like super, super tight all the way across the head and the eyes and the back of the neck. And then that contraction continues to happen over time. And that's one of the reasons why it can cause headaches, because there's so much pressure being created. And then it is also pulling the muscle that is all around your head and neck even tighter, especially if you are swallowing what you would like to say. If you are, the tendency for people that clench a lot is to chew on ice, chew on pens, chew gum. Those things actually make it worse. So if you do that, don't do that. It's really difficult because it becomes like something that people do because it hurts and or it's a nervousness. And so they like to chew gum. If you have jaw pain or headaches, I would encourage you to find something to suck on versus bite on, because your muscles in your jaw and your head are already working overtime because of the clenching and or grinding. And if you can stop doing that, and if you do get headaches, I highly recommend a mouth guard, like 100%. I work on many, many people in their mouths with craniosacral therapy, and it really, really takes the pressure off. It doesn't make it go away necessarily, but it will keep you from getting headaches. I've worn a mouth guard, oh my goodness, probably 25 years now. And I would love to tell you that I don't need one. I do. Because when I don't wear one, I get headaches. And part of that is car accidents. I've had 4 big car accidents. I fell when I was little, broke the teeth out of my mouth. So you do have the physical aspects as well. And then if stress is added on to that, it's the perfect storm of clenching and headaches. And also if people have quite a bit of neck pain, Effie, and the head's forward. So we're on our phones, we're on our computers, you're taking care of your children. The tendency is for that head to go forward, which creates even more pressure on the jaw. So to notice that and bring your head back more often, if you're able to do some self-massage, and I can send you a little link with that, and better even go have a massage to have them work on your mouth to get that to break up the pattern of contraction, because that's what is happening physically and emotionally. How can you shift how you've been expressing or not expressing in a healthier way and a more supportive way?
Yeah, it makes me think of, and I might have mentioned it on the show before, but my old boss, when I was working in a salon, taught me this trick that I still literally do every single day. And now it's just normal muscle memory for me. But I had a timer on, and you can just turn it on your watch and it'll vibrate. But you turn on a 10-minute timer for the hours that you're awake. And every 10 minutes, it'll buzz and you check in and you lift up your shoulders to your ears. You push them all the way back and you drop them, and really checking in with your posture and just how you're hunching and where you're stressing. But like, it really creates a muscle memory after time. And then it's also just so good to get out of the chaos every 10 minutes. Yes, it might sound like a lot, but it's not, because you'll notice like, holy cow, how have I not noticed how my body is positioned right now every 10 minutes? And it makes a huge difference.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
And muscle memory, that's one of the best things you can do, is to actually be aware that you have muscles, that your muscles are making the bottle, that your muscles are changing the diaper, that your muscles are lifting. And those muscles support the joints, right? And to make sure that you are paying attention as well to keeping those muscles strong and flexible. And you pulling up your shoulders, putting your shoulders back creates flexibility in the muscle and the structure itself, which really does help, because if it stays in one position over a long period of time, that creates pain.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I know I veered off a lot, but we are talking about the jaw and the emotions that come up that create some of this trauma in your body. So can you lay out some of the effective strategies or coping skills, or a nice, clean idea list of what people can take home if they're feeling these sorts of symptoms going on in their life? And I know they might even have other things pinging and they're thinking about it, but this probably still will pertain to you in many ways. So can you give us sort of like a clean list of ways they can maybe start to notice and nurture this?
Sure. So one of the easiest things that we have access to is nature. It can be your backyard. It could be a plant. And what I'd like you to begin to do is, at least once a day, notice nature. And when I say notice, I'd like you to begin to notice the color of it, the sounds of nature. So taking out your earbuds, unplugging from being plugged in to something. What does it sound like outside? What does a plant look like? What does the tree look like? What does the wind feel like? What does the rain sound or feel like? We're wanting to get into the visceral sense of feeling versus survival and being in the mind and thinking. As we slow down, because the cadence of nature is slow, and our cadence as human beings, I think especially in the West, is fast, it's moving, it's pushing. And so I want you to undo that once a day. Keep it really, really simple. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can look out your window. You could open your window and feel the air, feel the sun, feel the cold. The idea is to feel. And as you do it, what I'd like you to practice as well is to feel your feet on the earth and let your toes relax, let your feet relax, and really know that Mother Earth is supporting you. It's holding each of us in every day as we walk on the earth, and slow down in that. And I know that sounds very simplistic. When there's a lot of stress, sometimes that's very difficult to do. Very great practice. Number 2 would be connection. Who are your people that you can call, DM, send them a message, write them a message? Who are those people for you? Because it creates a sense of safety and understanding. And when our systems feel safe, it can relax. Getting some rest. When we are not getting rest, we become over time emotionally chaotic and sometimes feeling unstable. So if you could get some rest, even if it's half an hour, if it's sleeping through the night, having maybe once a week, every situation is different, to ask someone to help you so you can sleep through the night. That may be an option for some, not for others. And or could you take a nap? Could you sit and unplug from media and allow your system to not be in anything? That's another one. Any type of meditation, yoga, breath, those are all geared to the mind-body connection. Sometimes they're really hard to do when the nervous system is so activated. People will say to me, that gives me more anxiety to do breath work. That gives me more anxiety to do that because, let me fill in the blank, because then I feel what's inside of me. the feeling is the key to allowing some of that energy to move out of you. And exercise can be a run. It can be playing outside. It can be lifting weights to keep your body strong, yoga. Anything that gets you into your body will help you come out of your mind. And the looping that can happen of feeling there's no choice and I'm going to have to do this the rest of my life, and all the things that can continue to loop and create more anxiety, more depression. We want to think of it like a dance, in and out of what can I do today? What do I have time for that's just for me? That self-care is essential, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time. It can be little pieces of time that we give to ourselves to let our systems know that we matter. So to our children, and you're the caretaker, most importantly, you matter because you're the one doing the caretaking. Another one is movement and dance. Interrupting the loop in the brain again, turn on some music, whatever music you like, and dance to it. With some of my clients, I'll have them, depending on what we're paying attention to that we want to move. If there's a lot of anger, sometimes having heavy metal or rap really loud and singing and moving with that actually shifts that energy in the body. Or you can do any type of dance, ecstatic dance. There's a lot of courses that are community dance now for moving emotions. And that's fantastic because there again, we're moving and feeling versus staying in the mind and feeling like there's no way out. Breathing techniques. There's many, many online. There's resources all over online about breath work. And all you have to do is Google it or put it in Instagram. You'll see many free options for breathing, which connects to the body, which will relax the nervous system, hence relaxing the muscle tissue. And the last one of my favorite practices is gratitude. There's quite a bit of research being done at it's called the Heart Math Institute of the heart-brain coherence and feeling gratitude in your heart. And the best way I can explain this is to put your hand on your heart and connect to the emotion and the feeling of love, compassion, gratitude, whatever that is for you. What does it feel like to love? What does it feel like to be loved? What does it feel like to have compassion? And connect with that, and then bring one thing to your mind and allow yourself to connect to that one thing of gratitude and connect with your breath in that. Feel your feet, feel your body sitting down or walking as you feel the gratitude. And the research that they're showing is that helps the body settle back into a regulated state. And the gratitude practice can be done once a day. Just like you said, Effie, you set your timer. You could set a timer on your phone once a day to connect to your own heart, your own self-care and love and gratitude for your amazingness at being a caretaker, taking care of these people that need you. That's something in itself to be grateful for, is your courage, your determination, your love, your ability to do extremely difficult things. Gratitude. Pick one and begin to practice it.
Oh, those are so good, Christy. Oh my gosh. Thank you. And I'm going to follow up with just a couple plugs from a few of the things you mentioned. When you were speaking about breathing and putting your feet in the grass, it's so invigorating, by the way, and dance and soul. There's two accounts of two special moms. Sinead Quinn, who's in Australia, she does a lot of the breath work and dance work movement, and her Instagram is Sinead Quinn Official. I'll link it in my Instagram or in my notes. And then also our friend Annie, who's from here in Washington, has the Rare Breathing Room. So those are both really great accounts from moms who get it, who sort of teach and cultivate these types of communities. And then also along with the dancing thing, yeah, you can definitely get down to some Pink and all that. But I find a lot of therapy in turning up Eminem super loud. I feel like his lyrics really relate to our day to day. And if there was a soundtrack for Rare Disease, I think Eminem could have written it. But I love all those things and they're so easy. I mean, okay, easy might be the wrong word, but they are not going to cost you any money is what I mean. And aside from the sleep, you're not going to have to get another person involved to help you attain that. And those are very approachable and practical things that don't take a lot of time, and you get a lot of bang for your buck from them, especially when they become habitual.
Yeah. Most importantly is to notice your patterns of when you start to shut down, when you start to feel sick or clench. What are your patterns in your body that you can pay attention to and interrupt the pattern by doing one of the things that we mentioned? Because the more that you can interrupt it, the more that you're going to feel like you have some control over what's happening.
A whole new meaning of girl interrupted.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, sis. I appreciate you so much. And you're such a wise walker. And I know that so many caregivers were on the edge of their seat listening to this because they saw every single word of it in their life. I know that to be true. So I hope any of you at least came home with an opening to think about this, at least. And if you want to message me or my sister Christy and talk about somatic therapy, please do so. We'll have all the stuff in the notes. So, and we'll see you again. So thanks, Christy. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I hope you've been enjoying this podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this show with your people, and please make sure to rate and review it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also head over to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to connect with me and stay updated on the show. If you're interested in sharing your story, or if you have anything you would like to contribute, please submit it to my website at effieparks.com. Thank you so much for listening to the show and for supporting me along the way. I appreciate y'all so much. I don't know what kind of day you're having, but if you need a little pick-me-up, Ford's got you.